Wow. Beautiful talent there, Helen Tawali with the Zawadi Band. We'll continue enjoying music from Zawadi Band as we continue with the show. We now want to finish up with the headlines this morning, and of course, just to pick up from where we left off with regard to this NASA petition and the issues that have been raised about the tallying process. On the page 8 and 9 of the Standard today, they have a spread where the title reads, Queries over the disparities in IEBC poll results. Now, total votes garnered collectively by 8 presidential candidates vary significantly from the aggregates of the other positions. This means that probably people who went into polling stations, some voted for governors, but they did not vote for the president. Now, they've actually spread it out county by county in as far as the gubernatorial races vis-a-vis the presidential race, and the total difference comes to about 482,202 people who voted more for the president but did not vote for the governors. Now, they've also done the same for senators, and the difference there is 767,000. And for the members of the National Assembly, the total difference comes to about 567,000. Now, these are some of the discrepancies we're talking about. If this is true, this can also be used in court as well.
Oh yes, it can. Actually, in fact, this is what NASA should be doing. They should narrow down to some of these issues and just pick out specific issues. If they start bringing about issues of the hacking and all that, if they can prove the issues that are coming out with these disparities as to how the voting tallying process and also how the votes were counted and how they also came in, that will just work in their favor, because there is already doubt. All they need to show us is that exactly in this particular polling stations this and this happened. So I feel like NASA should narrow down, one. Two, they should also ensure that they have the facts as they are completely. This one needs to be like beyond reasonable doubt. There should be no point where we start arguing that maybe something else happened on the end, to be able to prove their case strongly. Also looking at it, IEBC, as we were saying, as I said in the earlier on, they did not necessarily inspire the confidence of Kenyans. And then when we start seeing issues like this that have not been explained, as of now, IEBC should already have an explanation to this. They should maybe tell us that they were able to analyze these ballot papers, that this and this is what they saw. But unfortunately, any Kenyan looking at this will wonder who will walk into a polling station and probably either vote for the president and not vote for whoever is leading them locally, or vote for whoever is leading them locally and not vote for the president. The assumption generally is that people would not ignore to vote for these seats, and that is where IEBC is starting to fail us, because they should be able to communicate these issues. It should not have been a process where we are doubting IEBC. Kenyans should know that IEBC was ready for this. At the end of it all, they do not look like they were ready, because even these disparities that are coming up, they do not have an explanation for us.
Now, a similar headline is on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Results contradictory, say lobbies. Now, this is according to the Civil Society, Kura Yangu Sauti Yangu. Kenya Human Rights Commission and Africa, coincidentally, there was a crackdown. There was a purge on. They've actually come out and said, according to the KPMG audited voters register, the IEBC recorded the total number of voters as 19,611,324, but the ballots provided numbered 19,613,000. Okay, the difference there is about 2,000, but even such a small discrepancy should count for something.
You know,
in such a petition.
The law provides, I think it's for 1% extra ballot papers per polling station. So the question would be, is that within the requirements of the law? There are two things that are at question here. Is number one, the IEBC's ability to communicate and basically be on top of the game as it comes to these issues. I don't think they should even have allowed such an article to come out before they have given an explanation. It is your job. You understand? You finished counting. It is your job to be furnishing Kenyans with information that should give us the confidence that this process was free, fair, and credible. So that's what they should be doing. That's why they have a 5-year term, by the way, as is it a 6-year or a 6-year term as commissioners? That is why they have that term, so that you're able to handle these issues that come up in between, before and after. Now, the question again that is going to be very critical to be answered if there is a petition is the competence of the IEBC is one thing that is in trial. Okay, have they done a competent job? That is question number one. Number two, was there mischief? Okay, and this kind of thing brings the question of mischief, because if I walked in, I was required to be given 6 ballot papers, so I had 6 ballot papers. If I left with the ballot papers and didn't vote for governor, that is a competence question. If I was given more ballot papers for president, that is a mischief question. You understand? These are the dynamics that are going to play out. But the reality of the matter, the weight of this particular case will be based on the evidence that NASA is supposed to produce. And as Stephanie has said, the key question is not going to be the hacking. That is neither here nor there. It's going to be from 34A, B, and C, and the copies that they have, and whether they're able to produce a smoking gun.
Yes.
If they're able to produce a smoking gun, this conversation will be different.
Now, as a lawyer, because the biggest claim by NASA has been this hacking system, and Mark Bichachi rightly points it out, and I remember when Raila Odinga said these are computer-generated president, walitagwa by computer, but proving that, the existence of this algorithm that probably was injected into the system and affected the results would be much harder, because probably, as your student rightly puts it, it has to be manual evidence. Forms 34A's, discrepancies such as these numbers we're talking about, the difference between this and this.
Fred, let me deal with this issue about these figures, because these figures that the newspapers put here are not legal. There is no law that compels me or any Kenyan to vote for 6 people. You can just walk in, vote for your MC and walk out. Don't vote for anywhere.
Or leave them blank.
Nobody can compel anybody to vote for it. So if people voted for the president and they didn't vote for any other person, it might be because none of the people appealed to them. So that is not a legal argument. The question that needs to be answered is, one, anybody who voted, and I'm telling people this is what I saw personally at a polling station. The people who voted in the morning from 6 to around 10, the procedure was you put your finger and you are identified by the AVD. There was that IBC person was to put her or his finger on a certain tick. Then the machine will record that you have voted. Many of these IBC people either forgot or refused or carelessly neglected to put that out. So people went and they were given ballots, they voted. But in the EVD, they were not recorded as people who voted. So we are going to, once the matter goes to court, we are going to have, because the EVD was supposed to transmit the total voters who voted. The voters who voted through the EVD will be less
than the actual
ballot that will be counted. That is going to be the tsunami of all times. Number 2, there were people who were supposed to be identified alphanumerically, those whose biometrics were not captured.
There are only about 5,000 of those.
Those people were also supposed to be captured in the EVD, so that the totality of anybody who voted is captured by the EVD. I have also said that by 3 reasons: either carelessness, 2, incompetence in lack of training, or 3, forgetting. They tally in the EVD will not tally with the number in the
Now that's the kind of evidence we expect.
That is the kind of evidence that we are going to see. And I don't know how they will explain. How? Number 2, my good student, and you have said that hacking is not a theory. The question why hacking is a theory is the transmission of results was through an electronic system. So if somebody had access to hack, then what was transmitted disappeared to the moon, and what came in is a new animal to the constituency tallying center. So that is where the whole issue is. But if the hacking now brought, for example, let me give you an example. Where I voted was at Nyamira Primary School. If President Uhuru Kenyatta got 10 votes, and Raila Odinga got 10 votes, a hacker gets into the system, adds for Uhuru Kenyatta to 20. Remember the manual records read 1010. These 1010 agents have them.
So it has to be the manual proof.
The manual proof forms.
Okay.
And under the law, Section 83 of the law is that, and Section 39 is that the transmission of the digital numbers 1, 2, 3, Uhuru Kenyatta 10, 1, 2, 3, Raila Odinga 10, you fill in the number 10. The form, the manual form that you are supposed to give must move at the same time. So the question that everybody is asking, why did the manual form that was supposed to be transmitted at the same time, at the same second, like RTGS, was delayed, and those forms were available yesterday? So that is why, if they will prove that, look, what was transmitted is not what we have in our hard copy, the IBC will close shop. It's a very easy, it's all about algorithm. I have heard people say that the constancy of 11% was maintained. You cannot prove that, because you cannot argue that it cannot be like. And also, you cannot say that the people who voted for the president voted for Uhuru Kenyatta. If they might have voted,
however improbable it is not an illegality.
It is not illegal.
It cannot be,
because you cannot prove. It's just like bribery. It has become a serious question when somebody says he bribed. The question is, how do you prove that the person who was given 1 shilling voted for the person who bribed him?
Okay. Now, because of time, that's a very interesting discussion. Of course, now we have to wait until we see the petition and how it's going to be handled. Of course, it's going to be a very interesting the next 14 days, if and when that petition by NASA is actually filed, because the Supreme Court will start hearings immediately, and I'm sure we'll be televising that process live as well. I need us to look at two quick headlines before we wrap up this news review. One is on page 6 of the Daily Nation, and that has to do with the nomination slots. Plan to nominate Isaac Ruto faces hurdle. Law could stand in way of ex-Bomet governor's return to National Assembly. A proposal to have former Bomet governor Isaac Ruto nominated to the National Assembly to take up the role of minority leader has split Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement for obvious reasons. Members of ODM know we've been elected duly. It is our position to take. This is just an attempt. Whether or not it can actually stand the test of the laws that we have in the land, we still do not know, because that can be challenged. Because a nomination list, to my understanding, should not be altered after a certain time. But even the attempt to actually return Isaac Ruto to the National Assembly after he has lost this, and even given such a position as a leader of minority, that says quite a lot. Is it that we do not have members of ODM who can take up that position?
I think, as you were saying, the system of rewarding that we have. So I feel like he was being nominated as some form of reward. But I would understand why members of ODM are aggrieved, because they've been there for so long in the party. This one has just joined. There were things that he had promised to deliver that, of course, have not come through. So, of course, I would be aggrieved if he's getting that nomination slot. He has not delivered what he was supposed to deliver, and I have been here working for the party. I have helped the party achieve some things, and I am not being considered. So I think that is the reason why this is coming up. If I would want to see whether the challenge would go through in court, because that would be interesting to see. But I also feel like it is important to look at who else can also take up these positions, because we know his capacity in the coalition, but there are also other people that can take up actually this position. So it doesn't have to be on form of a reward. Why not on basis of merit? And
this could have a negative effect as well, even in the opposition ranks within Parliament, if at all there's already dissent on such a move, then they managed to do it. Even marshalling that opposition vote would be a problem, don't you think?
You know, first, is there an opposition vote? That's a question.
However, some viewed it, maybe. The voice is still there.
Yeah, we know that Jubilee has huge numbers in Parliament, so the question really might not be hold water. The question actually that I think ODM and NASA needs to consider is who has the charisma, the strength, the personality to carry the voice of NASA in Parliament, because their fight is not going to be about numbers. Their fight is going to be about eloquence. It's about who is going to be able to speak on behalf of NASA in Parliament with the same gravitas and authority that the Orengos used to have, who are now in Senate, that the Nyongos who used to have, who are now governors. That is the question. And probably the question they're asking themselves is, will we stand a better chance if we take this guy who's taken the deputy president toe to toe and put him in Parliament? Will he be able to speak on our behalf? I think the quest here is not really to reward him. It will be unfortunate if it's just about rewards, because it is silly, because what are you rewarding? He lost. He lost completely. So there's nothing to reward. However, the question for ODM in today's Parliament, and if you remember the leader of minority, I don't even remember his name, that's how inconsequential he was.
Francis Nyenze.
Yes, you understand? Yeah. You need a voice that is able to capture the voice of ODM and the spirit of the people, because one of the things that I keep noticing about Kenyans is every time we vote, we are in opposition or in government. 2-3 years from now, we all go to opposition. You know, and then towards the elections we realign again. So the person who will be able to articulate their issues is who they're looking for. Okay, and you think you know, he's taken the government toe to toe. Remember when he was chair of the Council of Governors, he was able to articulate those issues very well.
Do you agree with Mark?
Mark is very, very right, but it has never been the question of giving merit. When you look at the positions already, the EALA members of Parliament, the East African Legislative Assembly, has never been filled to date. Kenya has never done that. Reason is, those positions were reserved by Jubilee and CORD that time, before NASA came in, to reward the losers. True. Strategically, positions are there. Number two, I am seeing the argument there is that one Sosion, the NAT guy, will step down. Sosion is number one among the list of the people to be nominated. So if he says, have stepped down for Isaac Ruto, both of them come from Bomet. The question is, what does the law say? The law as it is, you cannot nominate a loser. But I'm also likely to see people moving to court, the constitutional court, to ask whether that does not infringe on the constitutionality of this person to be appointed. So it might be a political battle. It might also be a legal question. When you look at, for example, the party list for Nairobi, for Jubilee, the court suspended it. It is not, it might have been instigated to now realize the people to be nominated, depending on the new realities, who has been elected, who has delivered, who has not been delivered. The battle now, if you look at that, and another one in the newspaper, is how does Jubilee reward all the people who are told, you step down, we'll appoint you in government. You step down, we'll appoint you in government. How many positions does the president have to reward? If he survives the petition in Parliament, or if Raila succeeds, can he be able to reward? This is a country where merit is not the question.
What about the talk about Isaac Ruto actually being leader of minority? Do you think that they're looking at the right place?
There are two issues. Isaac Ruto is a very beautiful lady that Jubilee is salvating for. Remember, there is 2022. There is 2022. Gideon Moi, he is positioning himself to challenge the vice president. Isaac Ruto might also lead a rebellion. Mandago, the governor of what is his fate after these elections. Look at the composition of the Jubilee members of parliament who came from Rift Valley. The majority were rebels. Actually, they forced the people elected those ones who were perceived not to be pro the establishment. So Jubilee will want to take Isaac Ruto and tell him, wait, Isaac, we can rehabilitate you to assist William Ruto in the campaigns. The death of NASA is imminent if the petition does not succeed. And there will be nothing called NASA because they cannot survive outside government for the next 5 years. If the court does not make them alive and give Raila Odinga either a chance to contest or they win. So the question now, it is not that these people are being rewarded now, it's a question of 2022. Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, if he survives, has a question of legacy. William Ruto, if they survive, has a question of succession of 2022. So the people who are going to get positions in parliament are being appointed now. Let me, you asked me how many people lost seats. 179 lost. I'll tell you the number could have gone to 250. There are a few people who survived by virtue of the last appeal of the NASA presidential candidate and the Jubilee presidential candidate that wear a 6-piece suit. There are people who are not necessarily popular who found themselves re-elected. If that is the scenario that over 80 to 85% of the people swept, 2022, the people who are in parliament now, only 10 or 15 will be re-elected. So anybody looking at for succession is looking at the losers of this election now, so that they can fund them, the guys we saw who have no money, so that they are funded. They start causing fires for the people who are in parliament, so that in 2022 they will be the ones who will be re-elected. You've seen the likes of Kimunya back, you've seen the likes of Kioni back, you've seen the likes of Wanjala back, you've seen the people who are in the other parliament now back. So are we likely to see these ones being swept out in 2022? And also, what is the role of the governors?
Okay. Very good question there. We now want to wrap up our news review this morning, but there was one headline I need to mention. FIDA has sued House speakers over the gender principle. That's a headline on page 9. Now the group steps up to have 12 Parliament comply with the rule after predecessor failed to come up with law on the issue. Remember, the current constitution of the National Assembly and the Senate still has not managed to achieve that 2/3 gender parity. And because elected members to the National Assembly were women only 23. Even if you add all the women representatives, it comes to 70. You need at least 117. So there's still a gap of at least 47 more women. And part of the demand is that you go back to the IEBC and they nominate more people. Are we likely to see that happening?
Likely to see that happening, I am not very optimistic, which is now very, very sad, because the 2/3 gender issue has been in contention for so long, and the last parliament closed without actually discussing it. And it is very, very important because it is part of our constitution. So coming to ask that this thing be discussed and we find a way to ensure that it happens, that is actually very, very good. That is not like, in as much as people try to say that women are trying to make sure that they're trying to get things easy. Unfortunately, there are issues out there that have not been able to make women get these seats in elective positions. So the only way is to discuss and find out how they can top up.
It means you could be employing 47 more people just by nominating them to the National Assembly.
You know, if you go the nomination route,
it's the easiest route.
It's the easiest route. But if you go the nomination route, as a country, we need to stop making decisions because of the pressures of now. That's the problem that we have. That is why we reduced the ethics form to self-declaration, because we make decisions that are temporary, and that's why we have rappers and former gangsters and TB people in parliament today. Because we watered down that particular part of our constitution. the reality of the matter, to implement that part of our constitution, you've got to start down at political parties. There needs to be a requirement for political parties to be required.
But the law will not wait for us to do that. It's already a crisis.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the former Senate and Parliament were unconstitutional. This one, as currently assembled, is unconstitutional. But the reality of the matter is this solution is not just going to be done in terms of just nominating people. It is a good start, but you need to look at how do political parties in and of themselves, how are they constituted? In NASA, in Jubilee, in ODM, in all of these places, when you look at their organizing bodies, when you look at their national executive councils, do they have women?
And that's the idealistic approach, Mark. That's how it should be.
That's how it should be. So if they're going to legislate, let them legislate down to the political party and its structures.
Yes.
That way you're able to bring in women into the political conversation and have more likelihood for them to run and have more even to nominate.
But as it is right now, the law requires that we have to achieve those numbers. We have no choice.
The Constitution talks of that nobody should miss a third of the opposite gender. This matter dilly-dallied in the last parliament for so long, until the matter went to court. Justice Mativa made it very clear that it is no longer a question of aspiration. It must be done, and gave 60 days for the Senate and Parliament to make the law.
And that lapsed already.
Technically, parliamentarians played their game, and it lapsed. Now we have the new case in court today. And I'm telling you for free, there is a difference between legislation and discussion and court orders. The court is likely to stop the swearing in of Parliament until it is constituted according to the Constitution.
And that means we'll get 47 new women.
It is no longer the question of how much it costs. It's a question of that is the constitutional provision.
And that could just be...
We are going to have more than 47 people.
They are new jobs.
To me, I don't call them jobs. I and Fred and the whole country said that should be the constitutional provision. If Kenyans refuse to elect ladies, not because they are incompetent, but because the ground of politics is tilted against them, the price we have got to pay is to have what? Them nominated. So what I'm likely to see, Fred, these judges, and I've told you, we have a new, vibrant, independent judiciary that does not look at cost. It looks at what are fundamental rights provided by the Constitution. 47 women will be nominated, and the parties, let me tell you, the people you are seeing making noise will be excited because they will have now more slots to nominate their girlfriends and their wives back to Parliament.
Wow, I didn't see that one coming. But it's a very interesting headline, the fact that there could be 47 more slots to be filled by women in the next few weeks. We're not talking about...
If the court makes that order.
Yes, that's a possibility, and it is a very high possibility.
Very high possibility.
Because it appears it's the only quick way to fix the problem as it is. Well, at this point, our time is up. I would like to thank Stephanie Muya, Danstan Omari, and Mark Bichachi, our panelists this morning. And remember, Power Breakfast still continues. Joey Mupengi and Willis Waburu still have a few more interviews to conduct. Plus, the Wadi Band is still in the house. We'll continue getting to enjoy some music. My name is Fred Ndimuli. For me, it's good morning.